One Punch Man Season 3 Part 1 is directed by Shinpei Nagai and is the beginning of the Monster Association arc. After Garou nearly escapes with his life, the Hero Association is going up against the Monster Association. Garou is continuing his pursuit to become the strongest monster, and Saitama finds himself in the crossfire of this entire conflict. This season of anime was my most anticipated of last year. I was genuinely hyped for Season 3. I rewatched Season 1 and still absolutely loved it. Season 2 was enjoyable, it was good, but it was not as good as Season 1. And so I was hoping for Season 3 to be a little better than Season 2. And from the first trailer, the special announcement trailer, it got me pretty hyped. A shame that the entire season was absolute dog water. Holy shit, this season of One Punch Man was bad, and I mean bad. I needed the proper time to talk about this. I couldn't talk about it like months before because one, I was trying to watch every episode individually and then I'll get my review of the full season, but after episode 12 I realized I needed to let it sink in and collect my thoughts and be as fair as possible. And then the Oscar season came out and I was trying to watch every movie that came before the Oscars, so I couldn't do that. Now I got the time to do it, so here we go. Season 3 of One Punch Man. Let's start off with the positives because I do have some nice things to say about it. For one, the art direction and character designs, for the most part, there are some walking things here and there. There's not good character designs in this season in these first 4 episodes, but apart from this really stale animation, the art direction was pretty good. I really liked the way the characters were drawn for the most part. They were really sharp line effects that really complement the art very well. The color contrast was pretty good. They got rid of that blur effect that I really did not like in Season 2, so that was a plus. And for the most part, while these episodes were probably the most stale episodes, they weren't really anything I was dreading. It just felt like we were trying to find momentum, but the art direction and some of the fights in terms of the animation quality were pretty fine. Like the Garou vs. Royal Ripper and Bug God fight, despite being poorly edited, was still pretty well animated and have some really cool shots in there. But it was really the last 4 episodes out of the 5 that were probably the best, literally in terms of overall quality. It's where the art direction found its footing again a little bit, though probably not as good in my opinion as the first 4 episodes. The animation actually got a lot better, and a lot of the fights in those 4 episodes out of the 5 were probably the best in the entire season, like Flashy Flash versus Hellfire and Gale Wind. That was probably the best fight in the entire season and really marked a turning point in terms of the quality you'll get from Season 3 from that point onwards. Beforehand, the quality of animation, especially in the middle chunk of the season, was really bad, and we'll get to that. But the fights did get a lot better as time goes on, like Homeless Emperor versus Zombie Man was really exciting, and though it has some really questionable aspects in there, I will say. Like, is Zombie Man doing blackface here? What the fuck kind of censorship is this? Or Piri Prisoner going up against that elephant guy and the cat monster. Like, that was quite a bit of fun. And the stale animation, whenever it did get stale, kind of added to the humor a little bit. So I felt like that was done purposely. Kind of reminded me of how stale animation was utilized in Season 1. The final fight between Saitama vs. King Orochi was honestly really well done. That was really cool. Episode 9 with Child Emperor going up against Phoenix Man, there are some really cool stuff in there, and was probably one of the most consistent overall fights in the entire season. Like, there is some pretty decent fights in here in the last few episodes, but that's a key word. Decent. They're decent to pretty good. Nothing exceptional. They were good enough to make me keep my attention, but other than that, they weren't anything spectacular and could not save the rest of the season's problems, because even then there are some pretty poor cuts in terms of the editing and continuity. The implementation of the music felt wrong at many points, especially in the first few episodes. Like the music placement in some scenes just felt genuinely off. It really ruined the tone of some moments, especially when characters are just talking and having a fun banter. It did not felt organic, and the editing also ruined some genuinely well animated fight sequences. For example, the editing in the Garou vs. Royal Ripper fight was genuinely awful and really felt all over the place. Like there's no real sense of shot continuity, action continuity. I even did a re-edit of this entire scene where I tried to fix the continuity, fix the editing, fix the pacing, added some scenes that were cut from the special announcement trailer back into this version, and I felt like it flowed a lot better if it just added those cuts back in. And it genuinely got me interested how much was actually cut out for the sake of runtime, for the sake of making these episodes a bit shorter. And I don't know, as an editor myself, I can see so many problems here where the continuity and editing just do not hit the mark, and it happens so many times to where my biggest problem was actually the editing instead of the animation. Like the animation, I know is bad, but as an editor myself, the editing of this season genuinely annoyed me to all hell, especially when I had to re-edit myself a scene that I felt like I did a better job on iMovie. And now let's get to the animation. Oh, I don't know what else to say about it. It is genuinely bad. Apart from episode 8 and a few good cuts in the rest of the last 5 episodes, and some cuts here and there in the episodes beforehand, the animation 80% of the time was genuinely awful. Stale, there's no real level of detail and depth to the character designs in the animation. There's no real sense of weight to the action. PNG being dragged across the screen, and it is poorly implemented. The characters do not feel like they are in the environment. They are not in this world. It just felt like moving drawings, but not in a good way. Not in a way that I feel engrossed into this world. There needed to be so much more work to make this animation feel fluid and genuinely just good is what I'm trying to say. We need better quality than what we got here. And I heard there was a 6-month production window for this season and like 3 months of pre-production. That's genuinely under a year of work that needed to be done to make this season good. Who greenlit that schedule? That is not enough time for this. The Cosmic Garou vs. Saitama fight, I'm gonna tell you, that took like maybe around 2 to 3 months to do for those animators that worked on that thing for one 14-minute video. This is a 12-episode season with 24-minute long episodes that runs up to about like over 2 to 4 hours of screen time, maybe a little bit more if I'm doing actual research. Yeah, that production window ain't enough time. It is mind-boggling that this was supposedly the actual amount of time the animators had left to work on this season. I'm surprised that they got a good episode out of this time of work. Like, episode 8 was genuinely the only good episode, really. All the others after that ranged from decent to bad. Episode 10 being the worst out of the last 5 episodes. Like, that was so outsourced, it's not even fun. You could tell the consistency of the drawings and the animation just was not there when compared to episode 8, 9, 10, and 12. Another element of season 3 that really annoyed me throughout the entire season was the amount of filters used in almost every episode. With the exception of episode 9, almost every scene has an ugly looking neon filter that's trying to capture a sense of tension in a conversation or in an action sequence, but the majority of the time it fails, and it's because it's used so frequently that it becomes pointless. There are scenes where nothing's going on tension-wise, yet there's a filter to try and insinuate some tension, and it just feels awkward. The misuse of these filters and overuse at the same time really annoyed me and felt really out of place. There are only 2 instances off the top of my head that felt like the filter was used properly, and that is Pure Prisoner in episode 11 to showcase the kind of aura he's exhilarating in a scene with a pink background, which often that background is used with him, and it's used pretty well, and I think it captured his vibes of his characters and what he's saying seriously well, and I think it was properly done. And in episode 8 with Flashy Flash, when Hellfire and Gale Wind are trying to talk shit to Flashy Flash in a scene, he turns the conversation around and now he's the one empowering this dialogue, and the quick shot of his close-up of his mouth actually worked pretty well with that blue neon shot, and I really liked how that was done, and it was the only shot in that entire sequence that used a filter, and because it wasn't used all throughout the entire fight, it was actually properly implemented and it had the right effect it needed. But everything else just felt out of place. It ruins the art at many points, and it just feels pointless and rushed because it was obvious that they only did this because they had no time to draw backgrounds, which is again unfortunate. That is due to the lack of budget and proper timing for the episodes. I did not like this at all. It was probably one of my least favorite, if not close to a second least favorite, next to the editing of this entire season. I don't know, man. Part 1 of season 3 was awful. The story itself, I want to care about it, but the pacing, the editing, everything to make the story be enhanced was just, it failed it. It failed the story, because the story itself is genuinely interesting. The Monster Association going up against the Hero Association, can Saitama find himself in the crossfire, and is going to prove to most of the heroes that are in the Hero Association how good he really is, and Garou's character development. All that was interesting stuff, but the direction, the art direction, the editing, everything about the season failed it. And even when it tried to get really good, something else fails that momentum as well. I'm hoping season 3 part 2 is a lot better. I heard they started pre-production pretty early, they're in pre-production right now, so that means probably around this year. I don't know what to say. I'm now stuttering my words. I'm hoping around this year they actually start production and get ahead more than the last season. Part 2 needs to be great. It needs to be more than great. It needs to be spectacular to make up for this season, because there are some low moments in here that are so low it's indefensible. So yeah, some good stuff in here. I'm not gonna be like unfair and say there's nothing good here. There's some stuff that I liked and some cuts that were pretty good. Some art direction pieces that I genuinely liked. But for the most part, this was a really bad season, and I could only hope that part 2 picks up the pace and genuinely brings us a good conclusion to the Monster Association arc. I'm going to give Season 3 Part 1 of One Punch Man a D. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.